Sup, Rob?
No
How you
problem.
doing?
Yeah, I'm surprised we've never done this. Like I've been at Sands for over 10 years now, and we've never done a talk together. So this is great.
Hey, I asked for 30 minutes and they said you guys get
Yeah,
15.
I think it's very clear that they've never watched either one of us talk when they gave us like 15 minutes in total. Like that's ridiculous. We're gonna go for the next hour and a half for
Yeah.
everyone dialing in.
Yeah. Well, we do have a follow-up panel. We have 90 slides to go through. So,
Yeah.
So Rob, this is Emerging Threat Summit, and you're sitting in, a precipice over at Dragos. I'm just gonna, throw this out there. And it's always been one of these things. If we're, sitting around, I hate fireside chats, by the way. Just the concept of it, it's really Rob and I having a whiskey together, but it's a little early in the day. And I think you're in your backyard, it looks like. Oh, where are you?
I'm at the Dragos North American Forum in Chicago, and we're at a winery. So, like, you're like, it's a little
Oh,
early in the day, and like we're hosting at a winery. But yeah, okay, that's fine.
all
It's
right.
early
There
for
you go.
you.
So
I'm
you
like,
are
yeah.
already there. This is great. All right. So Dragos, what do what's on your mind? What's keeping you up at night, leaning into like next 2 years? It's 2027. What are you guys fighting at this point?
Yeah, so for folks that are maybe unfamiliar with OT, OT is operations technology. Sometimes talk about it in terms of industrial control systems, which we do a lot of work over in the SANS ICS curriculum on. And just as a brief thing for folks, it's basically IT plus physics. So we have Windows systems, we have printers, all that kind of stuff. But for us, the Windows system's operating a circuit breaker for an electric transmission substation, as an example. So it's specialized controllers and all this stuff in IT, but the main thing is the physics is what makes OT different. Anyway, so when we look at that, there's probably a couple trends that I'm a bit concerned about. Number one, if you've seen big attacks before, like Ukraine power outages or Trisis, which was deployed in a petrochemical refinery where they try to kill people at that refinery as a result of a cyber attack, those types of things historically have been kind of one-off. The more damage or disruption you want to do in industrial automation, the more specific to that site you traditionally had to have been. And that's because we've had very heterogeneous environments. A carbon cracker in a refinery in Dammam, Saudi Arabia has nothing in common with an electric transmission substation in Washington, D.C. It has nothing in common with a water pump in Illinois. And so there was not a lot of commonality. And so to develop attacks that scaled is almost impossible. However, with digital transformation, with trying to take advantage of AI, with trying to take advantage of data normalization, et cetera, we've gone down the journey to become more homogenous. Maybe different vendors, Siemens, Honeywell, Yokogawa, whoever, but under the hood, a lot of the stuff that we have, same coding protocols, same network protocols, same coding frameworks, some same code in general. And so as a result, what ends up happening is we have a lot of more sort of homogenous infrastructure, which means you can start scaling attacks. In 2021, we and U.S. government and undisclosed third party discovered a framework called pipe dream, which is the first time ever we saw the ability to cause physical consequence across industry. You can deploy it anywhere from unmanned aerial vehicles to water facilities. And anywhere that is more of a modern environment in the last 10 years, that framework works. It's not about exploits, not about vulnerabilities. It's just about using native functionality against itself. So that's trend number one. And then the second trend that I'm concerned about is we now have proof, we have now evidence for the first time that state actors that target OT are sharing their infrastructure capabilities and knowledge with non-state actors. So we've always been concerned about the proliferation of operation technology attacks. When it's state actors, there's some restraint. There's not a lot, but there's some. When you get a non-state actors, ransomware, hacktivists, whatever, there's like no restraint. And for the first time, we can show that that proliferation is starting to take place. And the two teams that took down the electric power sector in 2015 and 2016 Ukraine, and then on from there, are two of the teams that are actively sharing infrastructure knowledge with Russian-based activists and criminal groups. I fully expect that the low frequency, high consequence world of OT attacks is going to start becoming higher frequency as a result.
Yeah, and the thing that I was actually just posted a TikTok on it. No judgment, anyone. I'm fully trying to get this stuff going. Rob's just violent,
That's
but
okay.
yeah, you do you. Uh,
Yeah.
so
My
here's
wife uses TikTok. We're all screwed. It's fine.
I know. Yeah, it's like we know they all know the things. So I was doing some research and I'm really trying to get into MCP and trying to understand how that works from an AI framework standpoint. So for anyone who doesn't know, like the basis of this is that you MCP protocol, when you layer on AI, an agent's going to be able to figure out what is the right tool to potentially use. So imagine it's a fighter jet is like, it'll be able to switch from missiles to guns. It'll, be able to, laze something. It automatically make this determination. What is the right tool instead of having direct API? Now, what happened this past week, or actually over the past month? First, Google released A2A protocol on 9 April. Microsoft endorsed it 3 days ago. So you have two of the major hubs out there are now endorsing that what is called agent-to-agent protocol. And you layer that on MCP, and what this is able to do, A2A, is able to have agents communicate with each other. That way, you end up having a coordinated command structure. You could have each agent to have a special job that it's doing, and then layered that onto MCP. Then you're able to potentially have that agent potentially do the reasoning. And Rob, you're making a point. It's like everything's, I'll use your term, homogenous. It's heading that way, and then you end up having these agents that are to be able to coordinate without having to, ping back to the mothership. This is where I keep on talking about the velocity of, agents reasoning, that capability. I don't think it's 2 years off. I honestly think, we're 6 months off from potentially really demonstrating red teams and penetration test teams, nation state adversaries who are able to invest in, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into efforts. They're going to get there even quicker because they have unrestricted access to models that they're removing the guardrails from. And it's just going to be like, how fast can they build this stuff? And then if you're looking at multiple different PLCs, all the agents at different locations can now know they're coordinating with one another. Instead of one switch flip, they could coordinate 30 at the same time. That's the kind of thing that freaks me out. Rob, I don't even know. Like every time I mention A2A, everyone's like, "Wait, what?" How this is how fast AI is moving right now. It's just,
Yeah, especially if you're too close to, for missiles, switch to guns. Like you gotta have the capabilities that actually work. But no, I think it's a fantastic point. Industry is moving very quickly, and our adversaries are paying attention to it. And I still, I talk to a lot of governments around the world about this. We still need to update our guidance, not just from an AI perspective, but especially with it. Where if you look at the standards, and so I'll speak just for OT here for a second. But if you look at asset owners and operators, the people that run our infrastructure, water, power, pipelines, manufacturing, et cetera, constantly I hear from governments like, why aren't they doing more? Right. And so like I testify regularly to the Senate and the House. And then the last one I had a senator telling me very pointedly, these power companies, they're not paying attention, and it's like, what do you mean? So well, all they're doing is like trying to prevent these attacks, but nobody's getting in there to be able to tell us where solar winds is or what's taking place or, do the forensics, do the detection of all this. And I'm like, they're not idiots. They're listening to you. He's like, what? I'm like, you look at all the standards and guidance that comes out from the U.S. government and governments around the world, standards bodies, et cetera. About 90 to 95% of it, we actually did the math, about 90 to 95% of the guidance is preventative. Patch, password, segmentation, access control lists, endpoint protection systems, et cetera. Nothing on get visibility, be able to detect, be able to respond, be able to do forensics, nothing on that. And so a lot of these companies are deploying massive amounts of technology. We're getting this homogenous world. They're pushing very, very quickly. Our adversaries are paying attention to it, and nobody's looking inside the box to see if the cat's alive. So I would just advise strongly to take a look at that. And again, we have guidance from SANS on this. The SANS Institute, for anybody that works at infrastructure companies, the SANS Institute published the SANS ICS 5 critical controls. It lays out exactly what we've seen work in real world attacks against industrial control systems and OT. There's help out there. There's guidance out there. You can do this. You can win. And even with how daunting all this sounds, it's entirely doable. We had a Littleton electric water and lights company, small public power company. Volt Typhoon hit them. They came out a public case study on it. Volt Typhoon went after them. So Chinese government hit them hard, broke into the IT networks, compromised all the, failed to get into the OT networks for 300 days. And they ended up working with us and others to make sure they get kicked out appropriately. But for like 300 plus days, they got kicked out. And was it quantum encryption and blockchain helping them? No, it was like segmentation and firewall and the 5 critical control stuff. Like fundamentals still work.
So I'm going to switch it a little bit here. So you just recently rejoined U.S. military, which is ironic because you and I, have a very sordid history with
Yeah.
walking down
Yeah.
this path. But I do believe it's now Major Lee of the U.S. Army.
Lieutenant
So we
Colonel,
both are
yeah.
Oh, Lieutenant
Yeah.
Colonel. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took a break away from it. Oh,
Yeah,
five.
it's okay. It's okay.
Explain this. What's going
Oh
on?
God. All right. So yeah, so Chris mentioned that Rob and I have a lot in common, but we have way more than people realize. Like we both went to the same college. We both went to the Air Force Academy. We're both Air Force officers. We both worked in the intelligence community. We both are Denver Broncos fans. We were both avid Walt Disney World fans. It's really silly at this point. But anyways, yeah. So I look. One of the big challenges for the U.S. government historically, especially with asset owners and operators on this topic of OT specifically, is we just don't have a plan to respond to attacks. Like, what really does it look like for the private sector and public sector to really work together in like a case where like China and the US were to go to war as an example. And so that, everyone says they have a plan, but there's a lot of cross agency disconnects, and there really is no big plan. And so there was some authorizations of the White House that basically said, you know what, we're going to redirect this. Cyber Command, figure this out. Cyber Command said, hey, Army Cyber, you should figure it out. And Army Cyber said, hey, Army National Guard, you figure it out. And the Army National Guard was like, we won't Rob. And so there was some people, senior levels or whatever, that showed up at my house and said, hey, you need to come back in. I was like, no thanks. Got
Wait, I got pause.
got the tattoos, did all
They
that. I don't
showed up at your house, like they're knocking on the door. And it's like,
yeah, this is way
black
too public
man.
of a webinar to like get into who and all that. But some people you can name showed up and said, hey, we're concerned that we're going to go to war with China, and we're also concerned in general with this whole Typhoon stuff, and also we have no plan on OT. If you come back in, we'll kind of clear the way all the way up, and you get to write the plan and help prepare the troops and all that good stuff. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm still staying as CEO of Dragos. So like, look, you can do that. The guard facilitates that. You'll come back in, and we'll make this work for you professionally and everything else. And I was like, okay. And I thought they were going to put me back in the Air Force. And so they're like, cool. So you're going to be the XO down at the IOSC at the 91st Brigade in Virginia. And I was like, what's an XO and what's a brigade? They're like, you're in the Army now. I'm like, what the hell? And so I'm like, Googling like what I am. And so I've found it to be amazing. The 91st is just the greatest like team. There's just such a good brigade and a lot of good folks out there. And basically we're coming up with a plan to be able to make sure that we know how to respond to attacks on OT if so asked.
So when when are we going to see you first in uniform deployed?
Oh, yeah, I'm not deploying anywhere, but I go in uniform, go down there at least once a month, or at least 1 week in a month. But I think the advertised thing for the Guard is like 1 week a month, 2 weeks a year. Yeah, you can't write the national response plan on that time frame. So I'm doing a bit more, but they're on a regular basis. And the good thing is I got such an amazing team that it's honestly straightforward and easy. And but yeah, I've been doing it for a while now, so you might see me in uniform at a given time. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird, dude. It's so weird to go back after being out for like 12 years or whatever it was. And but they're making it easy by being just such a phenomenal support and team.
That's amazing. I can't like I have for everyone who knows anything about Air Force Academy grads, there's an actual affliction that you get. You actually have nightmares of being back.
I've never been back. I've never been back.
Oh yeah, well again,
they ask me to come back all the time. And like Phil Hagen and I are like soulmates on this. Every time they ask me like come back and speak, I'm like virtually sure, but I'm never stepping foot on that ground again. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some like PTSD that occurs. I don't know. I can't tell you the amount of times like I'm back there in my dream and I'm trying to figure out like I don't have
3 days ago.
uniform.
3 days ago, I had an academy nightmare. It's like it's real. This shit is real, dude. Like I hate that it happens. Or like someone will like start singing something like "Off We Go," and I'm like, oh god. It's like, yeah.
I have night terrors. I'm like screaming out. Like my neighbors are probably like, "What the hell's going on next door?" It is an actual issue.
I've been to all sorts of weird places and seen things you shouldn't see and work counterterrorists and all that stuff, and none of it messes with me. But yeah, it's from the academy, still screw with me. Yep.
Well, honestly, I'm glad you're going back in service, and now I get to say again, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
That's not a joke. It's a sincere thing. It's irony. It's thank you for like you're doing it again, and thank you for doing this. And
it's weird, but they're good. It's I don't know. It's hard to be like at Dragos, be like safeguarding civilization, and then like get asked and be like no, so I had to make time. Luckily, my wife and kids are super supportive, so all good.